The Invitation is a 2015 psychological thriller directed by Karyn Kusama, starring Logan Marshall Green, Tammy Blanchard, Michael Hussman, Mike Doyle, Jay Larson, and more. Let's take a quick look.
This thing is so official.
Maybe they're overcompensating. It's kind of hard to call everybody up out of the blue after 2 years.
I'm so glad you're here. We've got a lot to talk about. So much to celebrate tonight. Each and every one of us is on a journey, and we feel that it's important to be on that journey with the people you love. Everybody, this is my friend Pruitt.
Bars on the windows and new.
Security. Safer.
You've been acting so suspicious of our hospitality.
Well,
Jesus.
has he been like this a lot? So agitated? How has he been handling things? He can be self-destructive.
I think he's doing the best he can.
Something doesn't feel safe here.
We don't see you for 2 years, and then all of a sudden, we get invited to this lavish dinner. Don't tell me that this is normal.
What do you think is happening, Will?
This beautiful moment is upon us. Tonight is the night our faith is made real.
Why is this happening?
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm your host, John. 2015's The Invitation is a film that was kind of released without a lot of fanfare, although it was critically acclaimed. It got a lot of buzz and just kind of did nothing financially and nothing at the box office. And it's kind of a shame because although it's not a great film, and I'll make a lot of comparisons a little bit later to other films and within the same genre and what are the kind of do's and don'ts that this film does right and doesn't do right. It's probably my least beloved film that I've reviewed on this very show so far, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be talked about or even recommended. It still has a lot of things going for it, and I feel like more people should at least give it a few more eyeballs. So a budget of $1 million, this thing made $354,000. It wasn't really distributed that much, or at least in theaters, for very long. It's mostly found its kind of legs in VOD format. It's on Netflix right now, so if you want to go check it out there, you can, for free if you have the subscription. However, it's not a Netflix original. It's not, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all these other things have been killing it with original content. This is not one. This is from director Karyn Kusama, most famously for Girl Fight, I think in 2000. Doesn't have a ton of work under her belt. She has Speechless, which is 2013, a short film, Double X rather, in 2017, which was a segment, kind of an anthology horror movie, kind of mismatched, and then Destroyer in 2018, which was actually received quite well. But yeah, Girl Fight in 2000 was kind of her claim to fame. Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi, Phil Hay being her husband, actually penned this script. This movie takes its time. It's very slow. It's very much a pressure cooker. So for those that are patiently challenged, this movie is probably not for you. This is the slowest of burns, the slowest of simmers. It doesn't really, it only has about 100-minute watch time, and it doesn't really get going until the third act. And nothing really happens until the third act. Well, not nothing. For as much as I'm kind of scaring people away that don't have the patience for a slow burn movie. This is kind of my favorite part, because without giving away too many spoilers, because I think that this film should definitely be watched, and if I just tell you about it and all the intricacies about it, then it's really going to take the surprise and the viewing experience out of it. Couple Will and Kira are on their way to Will's ex-wife's house. She's remarried to this man named David. They're wealthy, but they do live in the ex's home still. So this is the home where Will left. Eden and David have been gone for about 2 years. They were down in all that anyone knows is they were down in some retreat in Mexico. But then out of the blue, they call not only Will, the ex-husband, and his new girlfriend, but a bunch of their friends to come over for a dinner party. And it's not just a cordial break that Will and Eden had. It was actually because their son had passed away in kind of like a freak accident, which isn't really giving away too much, because that's not really what's like the reason why, or that the son is dead. That isn't like a big surprise. That's not really a spoiler, so to speak. It's just that was the reason why, you know, this couple, this family, suffered this monumental tragedy, and that's what kind of broke up the marriage, which I could totally understand. These two just couldn't make it work. They couldn't be happy. As Will states in the movie, as soon as his son passed away, he was basically just waiting to die. So the fact that they kind of all went their separate ways, but now they get this like lavish invitation. Will's already on edge and kind of cautious about this whole experience. So after like running over a coyote and mercy killing it accidentally, they show up to this dinner party. The bummer thing was, I don't even think Will washed his hands after braining this coyote with a tire iron. Along with Eden and David, who live there, you have Ben, who is just kind of like the funny guy, played by Jay Larson. He's like the funny fat friend kind of. You have Gina and Choi, who is a married couple. You have Miguel and Tommy, who are husbands. And then you also have two new characters, basically new to the group, although, you know, Eden and David know these people. They met them throughout their travels, and that is Sadie, played by Lindsay Burge, and of course Pruitt, played by John Carroll Lynch. You want to cast John Carroll Lynch if you need a real creepy guy, right? Like he is, if you've seen Zodiac, but on the other end, he's also in Fargo, you know, making Marge eggs in the morning. You know, you got to eat something, Marge. I'm going to go make you eggs. That's also John Carroll Lynch. He could be a very nurturing husband in Fargo, or he could just be the Zodiac killer. He's got that range. But it just starts out as a nice cordial party. You know, David's opening his most expensive bottles of 85-year vintage wine, and everyone's really into it. Everyone's just very happy to see the couple, although Will can't allow himself to feel any of this this happiness or nostalgia, because it seems like he's back in his home for the first time since leaving after his son died. So he is more caught up in the moment of being, you know, the awkwardness of being around all his friends, also being around, you know, being inside this place that really meant something to he and his ex-wife, and then probably also seeing his ex-wife and how cheery she is, because right away you see almost like disturbing behavior, like a Stepford Wives kind of vibe, where David and Eden, and especially these new characters in Sadie and Pruitt, are overly nice, overly polite. They just want to make sure everyone's having a great time. And there's all these little nuanced things that are happening in the peripheral that Will's really picking up on. Like every time that someone comes in and out of a room, David locks a door, or people are knocking on their door constantly, and David's having these seemingly secret conversations, overly pouring for everyone. Everyone's getting nice and toasted. So Will, not only is he dealing with these emotions, but he's also picking up on the fact that something's not normal. Another instance happens in the kitchen with Ben and Eden, breaks her Stepford Wives act for a second and shows some real ferocity. Will is definitely picking up on all these signs, and rightfully so, maybe. That's what I really love about this film, is not until, like I said, the very third act does it reveal itself to be, is it is Will just crazy? Is it all in his head? Because there is quite a bit of flashbacks too, which are usually pretty annoying, but in this instance really, really works, because every time he goes to a different space in the house, or uses a certain sink, or, goes to a certain room, he has these very appropriate flashbacks. Like, I think that filmmaker Karyn Kusama really used flashbacks appropriately, and not obnoxiously either. She's not very heavy-handed with them. Some of them last quite a while, but they last just long enough to really put yourself in Will's shoes and really kind of delve into his emotions, and seeing not so much, there's not a lot of exposition. Will is basically just kind of upset and pissed off and untrusting, but it doesn't go into this long thing like, this is why I'm upset. Eden, you are not upset as you should be. I mean, there's a little bit of back and forth, definitely. Certainly them fighting and whatnot, especially later on, but there's not those big, drawn-out exposition scenes. They're used very sparingly. What is this movie? Is it a thriller? Is it all in his head? But it's not obnoxious, and it kept me engrossed throughout the entire runtime, and it makes that payoff at the end in the third act really have some weight to it. A lot of these, I would say a lesser movie, a lesser thriller, just kind of throws stuff at you really fast, or at least shows you a scene like at the beginning. It shows something happen like a Basic Instinct, where it does show that the person is guilty of something. Or kind of sets the stakes of this is going to be this kind of movie, and there's none of that. This is just really emotional. Like, you just feel really sorry for Will's character and him trying to kind of refit into this group and refit in to just happiness in general, and showing how couples deal with grief, and showing how couples deal with grief differently. It goes a little bit into David's backstory too, the new husband for Eden, just like this record producer that was just like a giant cokehead, but he also seems to be pretty straightened out. So the fun kind of comes to a stop. It was very reminiscent to another film that I reviewed on this channel, or this very show in the Cult of Films, and that's Go, where they all go over, Jay Moore and Scott Wolf go over, and the cop is selling them Confederated products. Like, all the fun comes to a stop when you realize that you're there for a seminar, and there is kind of one of those moments, except the seminar that they're watching on their laptop is a little darker than just Amway products. So that kind of is the first, like, daddy hit mommy at the dinner table, like all fun kind of comes to a stop. But then, David and Eden are the wine is so good, and that they kind of get the party back going on, due to games, due to food, all while Will starts cracking more and more. The pressure starts getting to him, these little tiny things that he's noticing that are just out of place, where no one else is really kind of picking up on it, except during one game, one of the other party members kind of gets, things get a little too loosey-goosey, a little sexual. It's like a sixth grade birthday party, kind of like a mix between like Spin the Bottle and Truth or Dare, this game that they're playing. So people are kissing people, and one of the friends gets kind of uncomfortable, so she decides that she's had enough. She just wants to leave. Doesn't make a big scene about it, and then she leaves, and someone follows her out to her car, and of course that sparks Will's kind of the hackles on his neck kind of stand up, and he has to check that out as well. So it's just all these little things keep adding up until Will just starts openly accusing people, and accusing David, and accusing especially Pruitt, because during the confession time, or during one of the games, Pruitt just lays out the story that, I mean, if the seminar video really was the killjoy, Pruitt's story is fucked. So that's kind of when everything comes to a full stop for a while, and that's when Willow just starts kind of calling him out. So I'm going to make a quick comparison here to a movie that is such a slow cooker like this, and then a movie that kind of ramps up really fast, has almost no preamble, but is also effective, and that's Green Room. So Jeremy Saulner's Green Room, of course starring Macon Blair, Patrick Stewart, is such that is like a no-holds-bar version of this kind of a siege film. And this kind of feels like a siege film, but like I said, it's kind of more psychological because you don't know what is if anything's happening or not until kind of everything is revealed towards the end. But where Green Room kind of sets the stage and sets the tone that no one is safe, everyone's on the chopping block, and you could, the main character could die, and the stakes are set and they're gruesome, and it's there's no foot off the Jeremy Saulnier doesn't take his foot off the pedal for an instant in Green Room, where this is the antithesis of that, but still very effective. This is kind of two different ways how you could do psychological thrillers or just thrillers in general in very effective ways, because Green Room is so brutal and so fast-paced and never lets you take a breath, where this movie is the slowest of burns and really kind of makes you be a detective too. It's almost like playing some kind of a board game or like a murder mystery game. You really feel like you're one of the guests, and you feel like you're one of the friends, because they take the time to kind of set up everyone's character development, and especially just emotions, because you don't really get huge amounts of backstory. You know that Will and Eden were married, you know that they had a son, and you know that something tragic happened to them. But that's really it. You don't know where anyone's really coming from, especially the other guests. You know that one of the guests is very flaky, but that's really it, because there isn't a lot of explanation to anyone. It just feels like you're a POV character, like you're a fly on the wall at this kind of bizarre party, which is a great fresh take, and I think that's why this really worked for me. It wasn't 100% effective, because there was a lot of setting and resetting the tone and the scenes. It felt a little formulaic after a while, where there was, everyone was having a good time, everyone was partying. Will would kind of pick something out, point it out, everyone would get a little nervous or just annoyed at Will because they thought he was being, overly sensitive because of the trauma, and then they would deal with that, and then it would go back into the lull again. And it does that about 4 or 5 times throughout the film. And like I said, it's effective in the fact that it gives itself enough time to breathe and to kind of, aerate and get ready for the audience to deliver such a great kind of hammer blow at the end. But it also does feel a little formulaic. They could have probably, this film probably could have edited out a good 15 minutes or so, maybe one of those instances of the stop-start of like the scene set and reset, and I think it would have been just as effective. So that's my only gripe as far as the pacing goes, because really, like I said, the pacing is fine. It allows you to, the more you're engrossed in it, and the more that you're on this journey with your POV character, the more you start to doubt yourself. What am I watching? Is there something wrong? Is there not? And it is very effective, albeit a very, very, very snail slow. Like I said, the third act, I won't spoil too much of it, but does it pay off? All this kind of tension building and dragging on? I would say absolutely. It was very effective. The movie goes from 20 miles an hour to 120 like that, and it's when it goes, and it's very effective. Not giving too much away, of course. It shows that you can really reward audiences for sticking with you and being patient. Once you do give them the carrot at the end of the stick, it is very satisfying. I think at the very very end, there's some kind of cheesy moments, like literally just the end. It was kind of cool. It's like, oh crap, that sucks. But it was also kind of like, watch the film so you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's literally like the last thing that happens, but you're just like, that would take a lot of setup and a lot of things to go right and wrong for all that to happen. So I don't know. Cool, I guess. Way to go for it. I would not recommend this film for everybody. I would recommend this film if you like RPG games, I guess. Like, it's definitely like if you like Bandersnatch and stuff like that, these kind of IPs that take a while to blossom. Have the patience and fortitude to kind of sit through a lot of people just sitting in a room, and sometimes the dialogue's good, sometimes it's not the best, but to have it kind of really and you have like little things in the background going on, and you know, kind of hunt and peck, and gives you stuff to look at while this kind of mundane party is going on, then this is the movie for you. Otherwise, maybe skip it. If you are on the other end of the spectrum and you just really love a thrill ride like a Green Room or a Blue Ruin from Jeremy Saulnier and Macon Blair, I would say this probably isn't for you. I tend to like both. I had a lot of patience for this, and I felt like it was paid off. Not a perfect film. This film actually had a completely different cast for a second. I guess it was announced with Luke Wilson, Zachary Quinto, Topher Grace, and Johnny Galecki as the main cast, and that would have been really interesting to think, because I could only imagine Luke Wilson being Will and Zachary Quinto probably being David, but I'm sure glad that John Carroll Lynch was in it as kind of the boogeyman-ish. Is he or isn't he in this role? Because I think that he is just such a good, just like foreboding presence in general. Whether he is a bad guy or not, he's just that person that you could kind of stick in the corner of the room and just feel a real unease radiating from. So I think that was great. I think Karyn Kusama kind of nailed this thing. I don't think it's a perfect film, and it's definitely not for everybody. But if you like the psychological thriller and you want to see one that not a lot of people did see, not a lot of people saw The Invitation, and I definitely give my seal of approval on it, and you should definitely check it out. Are you going to go check out The Invitation, or are you one of the few that actually saw it? Leave in the comments below, what did you think about this film, and what did you think about this review? Tell the YouTube stuff and the podcast stuff. You know, like, subscribe to They Said We Said to see more of the Cult of Films. Also, if you're listening to this in podcast form only, thank you so much. On iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and all those formats, leave the highest marks, whatever you do. 4 apples, 5 apples on an iPad, 5 hearts. I don't know how you rate stuff on those things. But thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Cult of Films, and we'll see you all at the movies.